Trusting yourself, owning your emotions, and releasing what isn't yours. In this presentation, we're going to focus on owning our emotions and releasing what isn't ours. Often we take on the emotions of others, whether it's from a partner, a friend, family member, or even societal expectations. This training will help you identify where that pattern comes from, let go of what's not yours, and reconnect with your own emotional truth. I'm Sylvie Stewart, and I'm with Taproot EFT. I'm a certified narcissistic trauma-informed Heartshine EFT coach and certified clinical EFT practitioner, specializing in helping clients navigate narcissistic trauma. I'm not a therapist. I help clients shift energy so their nervous system can ease out of fight or flight. A quick disclaimer that the information in this presentation is for education and not mental health or medical advice, and is not a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a mental health or medical condition. So let's talk about the limiting beliefs that can contribute to taking on others' emotions and lacking self-trust in relationships, which often stems from childhood experiences, societal conditioning, or past emotional wounds. Here are some common limiting beliefs that fuel these relational patterns. Jot down what ones resonate with you. So 1, it's my job to make others happy. This belief leads to over-functioning in relationships where you take on the responsibility for others' emotions, often at the cost of your own well-being. It can stem from growing up in an environment where you were rewarded or validated for being a caretaker or peacekeeper. 2, if I say no, I'll disappoint or hurt others. This belief makes it difficult to set boundaries, as the fear of rejection or disappointing others prevents you from asserting your needs. Often rooted in childhood experiences of being shamed or rejected for asserting independence. 3, I'm not enough as I am. Believing you are not inherently worthy or valuable can lead to constantly seeking approval or validation from others, making you more susceptible to absorbing their emotions in order to feel accepted. This can come from critical or emotionally unavailable caregivers, leading to a need for external validation. 4, I have to fix other people's problems. This belief fosters a sense of responsibility for solving others' issues, making it easy on their emotional burdens, even when it's not your role. If you grew up in an environment where you had to emotionally support others, such as a parent, this belief becomes ingrained as part of your identity. 5, I'm responsible for how others feel. This belief can create anxiety around others' emotional states, leading to codependent tendencies and empathizing, as if their emotions are your fault or problem to solve. It often originates from childhood experiences where a caregiver may have projected their emotional instability onto you. 6, conflict means I've done something wrong. Fear of conflict can prevent you from setting boundaries or standing up for yourself, leaving you vulnerable to absorbing others' emotions rather than asserting your own. Growing up in a household where conflict led to punishment or rejection can instill this belief. 7, I'm not allowed to feel this way. This belief invalidates your own emotions, causing you to prioritize others' feelings over your own, leading to emotional suppression and disconnection from your needs. It often comes from environments where your emotions were dismissed or minimized. 8, if I don't take care of others, they'll leave me. This belief reinforces the idea that your worth in relationships is tied to how much you give emotionally, which can lead to people-pleasing and taking on others' problems to avoid abandonment. Fear of abandonment, often stemming from childhood experiences of emotional neglect or inconsistent attachment, fuels this belief. 9. I can't trust myself to make the right decisions. A lack of self-trust causes you to defer to others' emotions and opinions, often blurring the line between what's yours and what's theirs. This can come from being criticized or not allowed autonomy in childhood, leading to second-guessing yourself as an adult. 10. If I speak up for myself, I'll lose love or respect. This belief keeps you silent when you need to advocate for yourself, leading to internalized resentment and the tendency to carry others' emotions to maintain peace. Growing up in environments where speaking up resulted in negative consequences such as punishment or emotional withdrawal can create this pattern. These limiting beliefs can be transformed through reparenting work, setting boundaries, and reinforcing self-trust. By recognizing and challenging these beliefs, you can start to shift the relational patterns that keep you stuck in emotional caretaking roles. Trusting yourself means believing that you are capable of handling your emotions and decisions. When we don't trust ourselves, we often let others' emotions and expectations dictate how we feel. Our inner child can feel abandoned or rejected when we don't trust ourselves. Think of a child who just needs assurance, and without it, they feel unsafe. When you trust yourself, you're saying to your inner child, I've got you. You're safe with me. And this builds a secure foundation for healing. Owning your emotions means recognizing what belongs to you, your feelings, reactions, and inner experience. It's about acknowledging that you are responsible for how you feel and behave, and that's where your focus should stay. On the other hand, taking on others' emotions happen when we blur our emotional boundaries. We absorb other people's stress, anxiety, and frustration, often without even realizing it. This usually stems from a place of empathy or wanting to help, but it can weigh us down and leave us feeling overwhelmed by emotions that aren't even ours to process. So take this example. Imagine your significant other is stressed out about a deadline at work. Suddenly, you find yourself feeling stressed too, even though it has nothing to do with you. Instead of staying grounded in your own emotional state, you've picked up their anxiety and carried it as if it was your own. This is a classic example of taking on others' emotions. And why does this happen? For many of us, our inner child was conditioned to take responsibility for others' feelings. Perhaps we grew up in environments where we felt like it was our job to make a parent happy or to keep the peace in the family. As adults, we unknowingly continue this pattern, trying to manage others' people's emotions and keep them comfortable, often at the expense of our own emotional well-being. When we carry others' emotions, it's often because our inner child learned early on that their worth or safety depended on taking care of others' feelings. This leads to a lifelong pattern of caretaking, absorbing others' stress, or becoming emotionally enmeshed in their experiences. But when you choose to own your own emotions, you're telling your inner child something powerful. You're telling them it's safe to focus on us. We only need to manage what's inside of us. We don't have to fix the world or carry the emotional burden of others. This practice reinforces self-trust because you are affirming that your emotions matter and that you don't have to absorb or take responsibility for feelings that don't belong to you. Owning your emotions creates clarity and strengthens your boundaries. It allows you to engage with the world from a place of balance and empowerment. When you know what's yours and what isn't, you can show up more authentically and take care of your own needs rather than getting lost in the emotional state of others. Reparenting is the powerful process of reconnecting with the younger version of ourselves that didn't get their emotional needs met. This isn't about blaming our caregivers, but more about acknowledging that there were times when our emotional needs weren't fully understood or addressed. Even the best caregivers couldn't be there for how we needed them every single time. So when we engage in reparenting, we're stepping in as the conscious, loving adult that we are now to nurture the inner child we once were and give them what they really needed in that moment. By nurturing this younger part of ourselves, we start to break the old patterns that have been holding us back. Patterns like taking on others' emotions, people pleasing, or trying to fix everything for everyone around us. Often these behaviors stem from a time when we felt responsible for others' feelings or when we believed our worth was tied into making others happy. When we reparent, we learn that our emotions matter, that we are worthy of love and care just as we are, and that we don't have to carry the weight of other people's emotions on our shoulders. As we continue to practice reparenting, we teach ourselves to create emotional safety from within. This process means we start to build trust in ourselves, the kind of trust we might not have been able to build as children. We no longer need to rely on external sources of validation or approval because we begin to find these things within ourselves. Imagine how transformative that is. Instead of waiting for others to tell us we're good enough or searching for that external okay from others, we can provide it to ourselves. It's not that we won't appreciate validation when it comes from others, but we'll see it as a bonus, not a necessity. This shift is freeing because it allows us to make decisions from a place of true alignment with our values and our desires. We no longer need to second guess ourselves or worry about pleasing others. In learning to reparent, we learn to trust our gut or intuition or our inner knowing. Ultimately, reparenting helps us become our own safe space, our own emotional anchor. The more we nurture and love our inner child, the more we can step confidently into our adult life without seeking external approval or needing to carry the weight of others' expectations. This is truly where transformation happens. Incorporating reparenting into our emotional healing work, especially with tools like EFT and the Heart Shine method specifically, gives us the chance to release old trauma and build a new foundation rooted in self-love, trust, and safety. Let's take a moment to honor your inner child, acknowledging them, seeing them, and giving them the nurturing they've always deserved. The more we do this, the more we can break old cycles and step into the empowered, self-trusting adults that we are meant to be. So here are some examples of what taking on others' emotions may have looked like as a child. 1. Being the peacekeeper in family conflict. As a child, you might have felt responsible for calming others down during arguments or conflicts between family members. Whether it was diffusing tension between parents or trying to cheer up a sibling, you may have believed it was your role to restore harmony. Over time, this can lead to a pattern of believing you must manage others' emotions or keep the peace at all costs, even if it's at your own expense. Over-attuned to a parent's emotional state. You might have noticed that a parent was often emotionally volatile, anxious, or sad. And in response, you may have tried to anticipate their needs and moods, constantly adjusting your behavior to keep them happy or to avoid conflict. This can create a habit of hypervigilance where you're always scanning for other people's emotional states and prioritizing their needs over your own. Being praised for being good or helpful, number 3. If you were praised for being a good child who helped others, especially emotionally, you might have learned that love and acceptance were tied to how much you could offer emotionally. This can lead to a belief that your worth comes from how you can care for others, leaving little room to care for yourself. 4. Feeling responsible for a parent's happiness. In some cases, children might hear statements like, "You're the only thing that makes me happy," or "I don't know what I would do without you." These kinds of comments can lead to a sense of emotional responsibility for a parent's well-being. teaching the child that they are responsible for the happiness of others. This may result in a deep fear of disappointing others and a lifelong need to make people happy to avoid feelings of guilt or failure. 5. Absorbing emotional energy in unpredictable environments. If you grew up in a household where emotional outbursts, anger, or stress were frequent, you may have learned to constantly monitor the emotional energy of the room to protect yourself. This can lead to emotional hypersensitivity, where you become accustomed to absorbing the feelings of others and managing their emotional states to feel safe. These early experiences can deeply influence how we show up as adults. Often, we may not even realize that we're still carrying these patterns of taking on others' emotions, which can lead to burnout, resentment, or losing touch with our own emotional needs. Reparenting work allows us to identify these patterns, release them, and finally start prioritizing our own emotional well-being. Healthy boundaries are crucial in safeguarding our emotional well-being and building a foundation of trust within ourselves. Boundaries allow us to separate what's ours from what's not. When we establish boundaries, we are essentially creating a protective space that helps us distinguish between what belongs to us, our emotions, responsibilities, and energy, and what belongs to others. This clarity is essential for maintaining emotional integrity and fostering personal growth. Boundaries can manifest in different forms. When we set them, we're telling our inner child, "You're worth protecting. You don't need to take on what's not yours." So some examples are physical boundaries, and those are about our personal space and physical interactions. They let us choose who can be close to us and how we want to engage physically. For example, limiting physical closeness, like saying, "I need some space right now," when someone is upset or venting, or "I will continue this conversation when you can speak calmly to me." Another example is allocating specific times to interact with others, like scheduling conversations so you're not overwhelmed by last-minute emotional uploading. And finally, deciding when and how you're comfortable with physical affection, especially when someone else is emotionally distressed. For example, choosing not to hug someone if it feels draining to you in the moment. And emotional boundaries focus on protecting our feelings, preventing us from absorbing others' emotions and allowing us to own our own emotional experiences without feeling guilty or responsible for someone else's emotional state. Some examples are acknowledging someone's feelings without internalizing them. For instance, saying, "I understand you're upset, but this is not something that I can fix for you right now, or I can handle right now. I can listen, but I can't solve this for you." Energetic boundaries relate to our spiritual and mental energy, helping us shield ourselves from being drained by external influences, whether through overcommitment or emotional overwhelm. Some examples are imagining a protective bubble or shield around you to block other people's emotional energy from entering your space, helping you stay grounded. Or after a heavy interaction, taking time to clear their energy from your space, such as deep breathing, meditation, or a short grounding exercise. And you can say, for example, "I acknowledge their pain, but I'm letting go of any energy that doesn't belong to me." A lot of my clients initially are unsure of when it's appropriate to set a boundary because it can feel like a last resort or aggressive. But in reality, we can set boundaries over almost anything. Boundary work can truly change your life. If we feel guilty or second guess when we set boundaries as an adult, it's often because there's a smaller, younger version of ourselves that is afraid of getting into trouble. So reparenting work around what resistance is coming up when you try or even think about setting a boundary is really important to be able to set the boundary needed in your life and not to have an emotional charge around it, so that you can feel good about your boundary, knowing that it's there for a reason and it's there to keep you safe. Integrating the practices of self-trust and boundaries is a journey of recognizing your inherent worth and power. At its core, it means trusting that you are enough, that your feelings, needs, and instincts are valid. It's about cultivating an unwavering belief in yourself and reclaiming your emotional autonomy. So, trusting that you are enough. Self-trust begins when you let go of the need for external validation. It requires listening to your inner voice and affirming that your feelings, desires, and thoughts are valid without needing others' approval. This practice of trust allows you to confidently own your emotions without dismissing or minimizing them to please others. Owning your emotions means recognizing what belongs to you emotionally. You are responsible for your feelings, but not for the feelings of others. By separating your emotions from those of others, you free yourself from the burden of over-identifying with their experiences. This distinction is so important when setting emotional boundaries, especially in challenging relationships. Setting boundaries often means saying no, a word that can feel uncomfortable, but it's vital for emotional well-being. Whether it's declining to take on others' expectations or refusing to internalize their emotions, saying no is an act of self-protection and empowerment. It signals that you respect your own needs and are committed to your own emotional health. As you continue to build self-trust and reinforce your boundaries, something powerful begins to happen. You become more aligned with your true self. This alignment allows you to operate from a place of authenticity, honoring who you are without feeling the need to conform to external pressures. This inner alignment is essential to the process of reparenting, where you become the caregiver, protector, and advocate that your inner child may have needed. By standing firm in your boundaries, you tell your inner child, you are safe and I will protect you. Ultimately, when you integrate self-trust and boundaries, you unlock a sense of emotional freedom. You no longer feel tethered to others' emotional states or expectations. Instead, you have the freedom to show up as your authentic self, making decisions based on your own truths and values. This practice of setting boundaries, saying no, and trusting in yourself creates a life of greater fulfillment, peace, and emotional sovereignty. When you take on others' emotions, it impacts more than just your personal well-being. It also disrupts your ability to lead and grow your business. And here's how. 1, decrease clarity and focus. When you're carrying the emotional weight of others, whether it's clients, team members, or even loved ones, it clouds your judgment. It becomes harder to think clearly and make confident decisions, causing you to second-guess your choices. You may find yourself stuck in indecision or losing sight of your business goals because you're distracted by the emotional noise that isn't yours. Burnout and emotional fatigue. Holding on to others' emotion leads to emotional exhaustion. Instead of reserving your energy to focus on your business, you're drained from trying to manage feelings that aren't yours to handle. Over time, this can definitely lead to burnout, impacting your productivity, creativity, and overall ability to grow your business. 3, difficulty setting boundaries. Without strong boundaries, it becomes hard to distinguish between your emotional experience and someone else's. This leads to overextending yourself, taking on too much responsibility, and saying yes when you need to say no. Your time and energy get spread thin, leaving you less able to focus on what really matters in your business. 4, strained client relationships. When you take on your client's emotions, it can shift the dynamic from professional to overly personal. This makes it harder to create healthy, balanced relationships where you guide your clients from a place of clarity and confidence. It can also blur the lines between helping and enabling, which might prevent clients from making real progress. And 5, lowered confidence in leadership. Carrying the emotional baggage of others can make you feel less capable of making strategic decisions for your business. You may start to rely too much on external validation or fear of others' opinions, leading to hesitation in taking bold steps. This undermines your leadership and stunts your business growth. Learning to release what's not yours and trusting your own emotions allows you to lead with confidence, clarity, and purpose. It creates the emotional space for you to show up fully for your business without being bogged down by emotions that don't belong to you. So what is EFT? EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, or tapping. It's a powerful healing modality, and it combines elements of cognitive therapy with acupressure by gently tapping on specific points on the body. This technique helps calm the nervous system and shift negative emotions by addressing the energy disruptions caused by stress, trauma, and limiting beliefs. As we tap, we release the energy of stuck emotions, allowing the body and mind to restore balance and peace. This self-help somatic energy technique allows us to step into a space of emotional freedom. Reparenting the inner child and reparenting work is my specialty. This technique is deeply transformative process that allows us to heal emotional wounds from the past. Our inner child is that part of us that holds on to experiences, fears, and unmet needs from childhood, even if we had a supportive upbringing. These moments can impact how we respond to stress, relationships, and our sense of self-worth in adulthood. I coach clients how to reparent their own inner child. Reparenting involves connecting with that younger version of ourselves and offering love, support, and protection that we may not have received at the time. It's about showing up as the adult version of ourselves, stepping in to defend and nurture our inner child. In this process, we rebuild trust within ourselves. Instead of seeking external validation or taking on others' emotions, we learn to validate our own feelings and meet our own needs. This work, paired with EFT, empowers us to break old patterns, set healthy boundaries, and embrace a more aligned, confident version of who we already are. So as we wrap up, I want you to take a moment to reflect on how much power you may have been giving away by holding on to emotions that aren't yours. Imagine how freeing it would feel to embody a renewed sense of trust in yourself and the ability to fully own your emotions, no longer carrying the weight of others' expectations, opinions, or energy. By learning to release what isn't yours, you give yourself the space to operate with clarity, confidence, and strength. This shift not only transforms your emotional well-being, but also creates a ripple effect that elevates your personal and professional life. I encourage you to take the first step towards this transformation, whether that's through setting stronger boundaries in your life, starting to trust your own voice over the noises around you, or exploring tools like EFT and reparenting to release these emotional burdens and build deeper self-trust. Trust yourself and release what isn't serving you. You deserve the freedom and clarity that comes with this inner alignment. And if this message resonates with you today and you see patterns that aren't serving you any longer and you are ready for a change, connect with me. Let's chat for a free discovery call, talk about what's showing up for you, and see if what I do with my healing container could be of service to you. And I'm always cheering you on.